Hello, and welcome to Funcast, the Fungi podcast. And thank you for coming. This is episode 1 of our podcast. And today we have a special guest, Ashley Enders from BoomerShroomer.
Hello. Thank you guys so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here. I can't believe that I got chosen to be the first one, so can't wait to.
Yeah, no, thank you for
Yeah, we're gonna.
coming on. Thank you for coming on. Why don't you tell the audience a little bit about yourself?
Sure. My name is Ashley Enders, and I am the owner of BoomerShroomer. And I invented the inflatable monotub a few years back. And I'm just a relatively new mushroom enthusiast, just trying to help people grow mushrooms, and I'm teaching them what I learn as I go. And that's pretty much who I am.
That's awesome. Thank you for the solid introduction. I was wondering, so what exactly, uh, oh gosh, sorry for the stutter. How did you invent the inflatable monotub?
Actually, I invented it because I used to sell hard tubs. And when I was selling the hard tubs, the shipping for them was just outrageous. I would fill those huge 66 quart tubs, and shipping would be anywhere from like $40 to $60 to ship them across the country. And one day I was actually talking to my stepdad, and he was like, well, why don't you make it inflatable? And then I was like, well, that's a great idea. So a couple months later, I had a prototype, and then boom, the inflatable nanotub was here, and it's a super easy way to grow mushrooms, and it ships super simply, and a lot cheaper.
Shipping prices are arguably the problem for most people in the mycology community. So it's really cool that you were able to come up with an idea to make that more efficient for you as well as the home grower, right?
Definitely, shipping is one of the biggest problems I have, trying to obviously reduce costs and make it more efficient, and definitely help that.
You've gained some traction around the internet with your time lapse videos of your grows. It seems like each and every one is a monster flush first flush. Could you give a little insight on how you do that successfully every time?
Sure. I mean, just from trial and error, every tub that I do, I feel like I learn from it. And I would say that it goes back down to genetics. If you start with a salad strain and a salad culture, you're going to get a salad flush. And if you are growing with like quality materials and quality bulk, it's going to love what it's growing in. It's going to give you a salad flush. One thing is like, you don't want to overcomplicate growing mushrooms. There's a simplistic way to do it. And you don't have to add all the extra stuff. A lot of times I see people add too much humidity or fan too much where it ends up making their tub have aborts or making it dry out. And then obviously their flush doesn't happen. If you just let the monotub do what it does, I promise you it'll flush for you. Doing less is more. Neglect tech is really the way to go after you
I
give it a little air.
Yeah, little air and just kind of let it live, right?
Right?
It's kind of it's so hard to do, especially when you first grow. You want to peek and watch or see if anything's growing, but all in the end, it kind of ends up biting you in the butt. Um,
Also, I think it's really important to start fruiting earlier. And I actually have a couple tubs that I can give you some examples. So I just started these tubs over here, and one of them is they're like when the tub gets to about, and I'm going to try to do this stage, this I believe is like the perfect time to start fruiting. If you start to fruit after that, what will happen is your tub gets like super kind of tight like this, which this is pretty good. But if it gets too tight, then when you go to fan it, it actually, the air can't like get down into the substrate, and which basically allows it to start the initiation of the pinning process. And if it can't breathe, it can't pin. So I've really started to fruit my tubs a lot faster. And then, like I mentioned yesterday on our live, I no longer use a casing. And I believe by not using the casing, I can see the colonization of the tub much faster, which allows me to give it air faster, which I believe allows it to pin quicker and ultimately give you a fuller flush.
There you go. I mean, that's the golden advice right there. I take that to heart. What as far as ratios are concerned, what do you feel is the best ratio for your specific tub? I know
Sure.
there's
Actually, since I'm in
many
my
others.
lab, I'm going to take you around. So I use a 3-pound spawn bag, which this is a Funk Straight spawn bag. I had it a couple of times ago. With with 5 pounds of bulk, and this is Funk Straight bulk. So 3 pounds of spawn and 5 pounds of bulk fits perfectly inside the monotub. And actually, it fills up the liner. And we'll go back to this really quick. This is actually your bulk and stuff. You kind of look down in there. It fills the liner up perfectly, right up to the edge, and colonizes the tub super evenly. It's a great ratio. Maybe I'm giving too much information.
Nah, it's perfect amount of information. So roughly 1 to 2 for the most part.
Yeah, 3-pound spawn bag and 4 to 5 pounds of bulk is really where I sit at for every single tub. And 1 strain per tub. Don't make strains in your tubs.
Oh gosh, I've done that a couple times.
I
It
mean, you
never works
can, but
out.
you just don't know what you're going to get.
The mycelium ends up fighting, and then the whole entire flush just becomes subpar, I'd say.
I would agree. Like you'll see like half of it be like the one strain and half of it be the other one, and they just don't really flush as well as you'd want it to.
So what would you say you try to keep your humidity and or lighting at when you're fruiting these tubs?
Sure. So when I'm growing, like just like in the spawn bag, you can kind of see the light that's in my room. And my spawn bags just kind of sit on my shelf over there all the time, just kind of hanging out. And during the colonization stage, you can have them in complete dark or just a little bit of light. I would say do not put them in direct sunlight. The sun from the heat will kill the mycelium. Mycelium has a death temp of about 104, and if the sun hits it directly for at least 15 minutes, it'll get to that heat temp. And then for humidity, I just like to look at the outside of the tub. I never like to miss the inside of the tub. I just like to have a natural condensation on there. So during the summer, you'll see a higher condensation because there's just more humidity in the air. And in that case, I'll usually have to fan more in order to reduce the CO2. But in the winter, because it's not as much humidity, sometimes I actually end up having to leave my plugs in all year long to keep that natural condensation on the tub. You just want to make sure that when you're fanning that you don't fan too much to where you dry out your tub. And if your tub is a little bit drier, if you add humidity, not to add too much humidity, because adding too much humidity can really stall your tub and cause aborts. And aborts are the mushrooms start to get like black on top, and then once they get black, they stop growing. And I believe most of that time is because it's too high of humidity.
That's some solid advice as well. I don't want to keep it all just cultivation and mushrooms. What do you like to do when you're not running the time lapses and taking over the internet with your quality content outside of mycology?
I mean, outside of running my business and growing mushrooms and doing the time lapses, I spend a lot of time with my family and my husband. And we like to go hiking and actually recently have a trip to Colorado to do some skiing, which we really enjoy. I live in Missouri right now, and we've got no snow, so it's kind of a low snow year, so no skiing here. But I like to be outdoors and go out, and I also like to just go out and hang out at the bars and socialize and
You
smoke and
know,
drink just like everybody else.
we all do a little. Everybody's
Right.
everybody's got a little poison they like, right?
Yeah, you gotta, let go sometimes or all the time.
Yeah,
Right.
gotta release, gotta do it somehow in some form. Speaking of hiking, do you wild forage much, or do you attempt to? I know for myself, I'd like to think I try, but it's so hard. I feel like even being in the mycology community and being like a cultivator to like wild forage is a completely different game.
Yeah, I could say that I am no Jacob from, the festival. That guy knows his stuff. Foraging scares me. I'm not gonna lie. If I don't know the exact strain that I'm growing, then I probably won't grow it. And the only mushroom I'm truly comfortable probably picking out is a morel. And I have one spot here in Missouri that we go that, pops up a few every year. But I feel like I could definitely walk around and I could be like, that's that and that's that, but I would never harvest it because I just don't know. I'd have to have somebody that knew what they were doing before I do it.
That's fair. I feel like honestly, I go to Uncle Fungus with pretty much all of my, foraging questions. Um,
Yes.
he is so knowledgeable as far as just mushrooms growing out in the wild. And excuse me, realistically speaking, you should be doing, your own spore prints and identification processes and stuff like that. However, there's some mushrooms, if you see a lion's mane and you're like, is this a lion's mane? It's most likely a lion's mane, right?
It's probably that, but I just don't know for sure. So I would say if you don't know for sure, don't.
Definitely, at least don't eat it.
Yeah, right.
If you want to like harvest it and for further investigation, try to get the spore prints, really try to figure it out, but be sure 100 trillion% that this is the mushroom that you know, you're harvesting and that potentially serving to yourself and your family because you don't want to hurt anybody in the process of that.
100%. I am thinking about maybe going to that Telluride festival, and I think they're like a big hunting festival. Try to maybe learn a little bit and improve my knowledge. So always trying to learn.
Always trying to learn, it's like, I guess, every day, if you could learn at least one thing, you know,
I think you'd
throughout
be on
our
a
life,
great,
you're going to learn
yeah,
a bunch of things.
yeah. Learning one
Um,
thing a day definitely is going to get you ahead for sure. Always be learning.
so as far as to kind of like, work our way back to genetics, how do you feel? So what do you prefer to start with? Do you prefer to start with spores, liquid culture, agar dishes? Um,
After growing for a while, I think the best medium to start with is an agar dish with a culture on it. I actually have some back here that are really nice. Um, Basidium, Equilibrium, these are his genetics. And I mean, I truly believe that you can really see the genetics on the agar. I mean, you can see that it's a good strain. Um, oh, they're so beautiful, aren't
that's
they?
like his work is so
I mean,
amazing.
it's just beautiful. I'm like, oh my gosh. I also think that when you put them in this bomb bag, they germinate a lot faster. So an agar piece will germinate within a day. You'll see the new growth. Where LC takes, 2 to 3 days, and then obviously spores take anywhere from 7 to 10 days. So if you're looking to grow exactly the genetics that you're looking to grow, you're looking for a faster growth time, I would start with agar or agar, definitely. And then probably LCs and then spores would be last.
I feel like I don't know how to really pronounce, that word. I hear people say agar, auger. I don't know. It's all pretty much a little petri dish at the end of the day.
Right? It's just I mean I call it agar, but I think that's my accent, but I don't know. Yeah, they're all the same. So
Same, different, different, I guess, pronunciation. Yeah, I could agree with that as far as getting or inoculating bags with a wedge, and
yep.
it's just to be able to see the genetics growing right. It's not only that the mycelium is strong, but then I guess also knowing your vendors who you're getting it from, because you could get an isolation looking like that's from multispore.
True.
So it's I guess you could get a beautiful plate and then have it run kind of garbage, and I've done it many times. I've even, personally isolated from multispore to make it look good rhizomorphically. But then, as far as the fruiting is concerned, well, you don't, if it's not there when you start it, then it's not going to be there when it's a beautiful looking rhizomorphic dish. Um, so yeah,
I
it's
would
like I
totally
feel
agree.
Basidium Equilibrium, he does all around amazing work. You're guaranteed to have those flushes as well as the vigorous mycelium that will eat through things.
Right.
Um, as far as contamination goes, the big C word that nobody really wants to talk about. And let's be real, we all get it, and we all will never stop getting it. Um, what are some of the most common contaminations that you have to deal with? I'd say probably with like different environments and different areas. Some people deal with different conditions and contaminations. So what are some that you naturally have to drop at people's elbow on every now and then?
I get two probably pretty common types of contamination. And the first kind is bacillus or wet spot, which is within the spawn bag. And it's a certain type of bacteria that germinates if the endospores aren't properly sterilized within the bag. And I say that that one is probably a big one for me that really hurts my grows. Like if you end up growing it and the mycelium takes over and you can't actually notice that the bacillus was in there and you move it to the monotub, you'll just see that your roots are thinner, they're shorter, they don't flush as well. So having bacillus is just a huge problem. And I mean, the best way to prevent that is to properly sterilize your grains. And in order to sterilize them so the endospore actually is killed, is you have to germinate that beforehand. So they say that you should try to soak your grains for at least 12 to 24 hours before you soak them. And that supposedly will germinate the endospore of bacillus. And then when you do go to sterilize it, it should kill it. So in the back end, it won't germinate for you. And then the most common type that I get in my tubs is trichoderma or green mold. And I would say that maybe about 5% of my tubs will end up with that. And it's usually on a later stage of like the second or the third flush is when I get them. And it's just from fanning or just being in the tub and harvesting, and eventually it will get mold. But if you are getting mold, I would say before you're harvesting your first flush, that being extremely sterile before you start is so important, because like that's where it's coming from. Like if you have a clean spawn and your grains are clean, it's happening when you put it in the tub. So using 70% isopropyl is really important to sterilize your area, to sterilize you, to sterilize your bag. I'd also preference not to use 90% isopropyl because it actually evaporates too quickly and it doesn't properly sanitize the area. Um, so and finally, like having a laminar flow to inoculate your bags, it's really ideal. And I mean, obviously not everybody can make this, but if you're going to be inoculating with agar or, well, mostly with agar, I would really highly recommend using a laminar flow or an SAB if you have one. So,
I agree with the laminar flow hood. I worked for many years in a still air box and have had loads of success with it. However, just the elbow room, being
right.
able to just freely move around an enclosed, or I guess a specific dimension of area that is just for sure clean air is something else. It's a blessing that I don't think I could. I don't even know if I could do it without it now. I feel like I could, but I don't necessarily want to.
And and some people, it's like they ask me, can you do agar without an SAB or without a laminar flow hood? And what I would tell them is, yes, you can do it. You just have to think about your whole room being the surface area. So anything that's floating around in your room can potentially flow down and like get onto the agar. So if you are going to use a room without a proper sterile equipment, spray the whole room down with 70% isopropyl, let the dust settle, make sure you physically are super clean, take a shower, wear clean clothes, spray yourself down with isopropyl, and then do the work. You actually might be able to do a clean transfer if the air around you is clean.
100%. 100%. That's exactly what it is, And even then, that's why we use still air boxes, because it's easier to just sterilize that small
That
enclosed
small
area.
part. Yep.
You just have to have your flow, and you got to really be doing, know what you're doing and know what tools to, that you need for that specific task that you're doing, right? Because you only have a set amount of time before you you know air starts moving at that point, and you want it to be still, just like the name.
Yep, exactly.
um so I you were thinking, or you had mentioned something about a liner. Do you use a liner every time?
100%. Um, when I first invented the inflatable monotub, you didn't actually have to use a liner for the inflatable because it's actually kind of like a plastic material. So the first flush will cling to the cake. But what I've learned is using a liner, the liner actually really like condenses with the cake, and as it like reduces in nutrients or dries out, the cake will reduce with it. And I truly believe that it prevents side pinning. It condenses the nutrients into the middle, which allows for the flushing in the middle. Um, and yes, to your question, yes, I use a liner. I highly recommend using a liner in the inflatable and in a hard tub.
I agree 100%. If you're growing in a monotub, in like whatever tub that may be, liners are, you know, necessary in my opinion. I know some people who don't use liners and they don't get side pins, but I think I don't personally know how to cast that magic spell, because that's never worked for me.
Me neither. Like I've always had to use a liner, and if I don't, I mean they flush on the side. I'd also preference that painting the bottom black or using like black tape is not necessarily going to help either. You really need to use the liner.
I agree. I agree 100% on that. As far as a lot of people, there's like a misconception, I think, for liners, that liners block out light, and light is what causes side pinning. However, that is not the case. I have done all the tubs, I've made all the tubs, spray painted the bottom, put duct tape on the bottom, did the whole shebang, tried it all, still got side pins. I think, as what Ashley was saying, when you spawn your tub in the liner, it hugs the cake as it as the flush grows, and it takes away, takes the hydration from the cake. It hugs that, and then that doesn't allow for the little microclimate in between the what would be the side of the tub and the cake. And that microclimate is what causes the side pins, because it's perfect conditions for any fungus to grow.
Yep, and the liner will basically cling to the side, reducing the airflow so that you can't get pins.
So what do you like to keep your temps at? Do
Um,
they fluctuate via like colonization and or fruiting?
I keep my room at 70 degrees all year long. So I have a small heater that's actually right here, right there. I have a small heater in the room that stays on all year long, and it's at a temperature at 70. And when it gets lower, it turns on and it just keeps going. I also keep an air purifier in here so that it stays sterile as well. I usually put it like right in front of the heater. But that's for both my spawn bags, my colonization, and my fruiting. Every single stage, 70 degrees. Seems to work really well. In the summer, my house is a little bit warmer. I would say maybe I get up to maybe 75. I'd also say don't make it too hot. Mushrooms like cooler environments. If you do it too hot, that can cause problems for you and cause aborts. And too much humidity can be bad as well.
Agreed. I feel like the extremes of temperatures, too cold,
Yep,
too hot,
exactly. Yeah, too cold is also good. They just don't grow. So
it'll stall it out. Too hot leads for, I'd say, more of a chance for contamination. Just things are brewing in hot
definitely.
temperatures.
Definitely. Yep. If you think about like trichoderma, it's the same exact conditions, for mushrooms to grow. So if you give them a little bit higher temps, then they're just going to even flourish more. So
I feel like personally I am a professional trichoderma farmer at heart.
We all are. I really want to try to do some kind of like time lapse where I have like a tub and I have some kind of culture of trichoderma, and on one end have mycelium and on the other end have trichoderma, and see if like I could get them to like grow evenly beside each other. And obviously like it would be cool to see the either the mycelium will win or maybe the trichoderma will win, or what's going to
That would
happen,
be really cool.
right?
As far as like every time I've seen that mold grow, one, not even in like a day, right? In the morning, you'll see a little spot, go to work, come back, and then it's like a whole green monster just
Yes, the
taking
whole tub.
control.
Right. I have
And
had
you
that
see,
happen. And you're just devastated. I remember like looking at this stuff going, oh my gosh, what happened? Like, so for all the growers out there, we all get trichoderma. I get it. I mean, it's been a while since I've had it like consistently, but I definitely get it at least 5% of the time. So don't be disappointed if you do have it.
no way, definitely don't. I don't even know if I consider my first grow because of all the failed attempts that I really had to go through to get that first grow.
Right. I can't tell you how many spawn bags that I got mold in before actually one was clean for my first try.
Gosh.
So many contaminated spores, and
It's
so.
just everything. Like, yeah, me too. Doing a lot of trades with people, sometimes even even in the mail, right? I think from what I learned is the temperatures fluctuate a crazy amount via if the mail is shipped in a plane, obviously it'll get much colder, and
Oh, true.
then when it's landing, then it's coming back to like ambient temperature of wherever it's at, and that was something that I had never even thought about until one of my customers. I was like talking to one of my customers, and they had mentioned how that how it works, and I was like, well, it's something that like I knew they use planes to obviously send packages to like others, the other side of the country, but and like for somebody who skydives, I could totally understand being up at like that altitude, the temperatures change, but then just to put all that into the mail, I was like, it just blew my mind thinking about that.
Yeah, it's so interesting. I mean, when things travel through the mail, I definitely go through some pretty crazy, climates. And I'd always say, like, if you're shipping spores through, the mail, make sure that they come kind of to room temperature before you use them. You don't want them to be too hot or too cold. Um, Also, like, I don't keep my spores in the freezer, and I don't recommend that you do that either. You could keep them in the fridge, but maybe not in the freezer. Um,
Agreed. Definitely don't freeze it like
don't
ever.
freeze them. Yeah.
So I'd say so fuzzy feet, right? The old fuzzy feet. Um, what are some ways that you feel like you can prevent that from happening?
Well, I just have to start off to say that every single one of my tubs has fuzzy feet.
Boom, shakalaka.
It's very common for me. Even when I fanned a lot more, I feel like there's still fuzzy feet. Um, and it's totally normal. It's totally fine. Like fuzzy feet is fuzzy feet. Like there's just a buildup of CO2 at the bottom of the mushroom. Um, to try to prevent it, you could reduce the temperature as well as increase airflow, and it should supposedly reduce fuzzy feet. But I can tell you, I've done that, and they're still just fuzzy feet. So I just want to say that it's okay to have like I get that question a lot, and all my tubs have fuzzy feet.
Yeah, fuzzy feet are cute. It doesn't
Yeah,
really
right.
do anything.
It doesn't really do anything. And sometimes I feel like maybe it prevents them from growing like as tall potentially, or maybe they are a little thinner, but I don't necessarily think that's true. Like I've seen different tubs with the same strain, and one of them will have fuzzy feet and have like a much more mature mushroom than the one that doesn't. So um,
you
it's okay.
know, it's totally okay. I'd say, with like the fresh air exchange and just creating air movement and to master basically what you're doing is you're just like mastering a way to properly have CO2 and oxygen in your tub moving
Yep.
around. And so from what my understanding of like fuzzy feet was, is like when you become a professional at that, you will not get like fuzzy feet. But I, that's also another one of those magic spells that I just haven't figured out yet.
Me neither. So if you figure that out, let me know too. So I still have that problem.
And that's, I just, it's also something I wanted to say. Even though we have our successful businesses in the mycology community, and teaching people how to do all the things, we're all humans. We're all still learning every day. So it's like, to answer the questions, we could just give you the information that we have learned throughout over time in our experience here. And we're also open to learning something new from somebody else. It doesn't necessarily matter how long you've been in, the hobby or the science. Some people just have naturally just different skill sets and just ways of thinking that, could just like that figure out a solution to something that somebody's been trying to work on for years.
100% agree, right?
Yeah, and you know, I mean, where did you so what got you into mycology? Like why did you uh step into this field?
Well, originally my mother was a severe alcoholic, and I had done a bunch of research that I heard that microdosing could help, stop the addiction. And I mean, she had been in rehab several times before I had come up with this idea. And um, then once I kind of learned what mushrooms can do, I started to research how to grow them, um, and that's pretty much how it started. And my mom's been sober for almost 3 years now.
That's awesome to hear. You started off with the intent to help, and look at all the people you've helped,
Right.
outside of your own even mother, right?
Right. I could never imagine where this has gone for me from where I had started. So it's pretty incredible. Pretty incredible.
I feel the same way. Every day I'm super grateful for everything. This little community of people,
Me too. I'm
just
so grateful for the support of the community. The micro community is incredible, and I mean, I can't tell you how much I'm thankful for everybody and what they've done for me and how they've helped me, and I can't thank you enough.
I feel like we feel the same about you. With all of your content, you're just a bubbly person all the time. Yeah, and then just putting, you're sharing the knowledge, right? There's a lot of so-called gatekeepers that they want to keep it to themselves. And I think it's always been open source. Mushrooms are open source, so we should keep it open source, and share the wealth, as far as the that whole saying goes.
I agree. I mean, if we all share what we learn, then we're just going to progress within the community even further, and like that's what we want. We want. I I just want everybody to grow mushrooms. So that's my goal. If you get one mushroom, I'm going to tell you great job, like because that's a huge success. Um, so
Agreed. I get oftentimes getting photos of people sending monotubs. They have like three fruits, and they're just excited. They're just,
excited.
and I mean, it's the most beautiful thing, because we've all been there, right? It's like,
Yeah, I know the feeling.
yes, that like three fruits.
It's like we did
Fucking
it, and it's like, yeah, you did do it. I'm like, that's a huge accomplishment. From your spore to fruit, that was a 2 month adventure, and you did it, and I'm proud of you.
absolutely. I feel the same way, and that's what that's what keeps it going. Next thing you know, you got six fruits. Next thing you know, you're flushing monster tubs every flush. It just the little process of trial and error and actually putting in the work. It's a beautiful thing. um So as far as your monotub is concerned, what do you sell your inflatable monotubs for?
Well, currently I am selling them for $19.99 on my website and on Amazon. My patent was actually just allowed on this product a few weeks ago. So I've just been
Cha-ching.
waiting for the final paperwork, and then I actually might increase my price once I kind of take down all the copycats, but we'll see. I might just keep it at $19.99 because I think that's a solid price, and I think that people don't seem to mind. I don't seem it like it's too expensive.
I think it's great. I've sent um, countless people your way to get monotubs. I can't even count, and everybody's super excited about just the whole entire thing. No complaints. It's super easy. Just blow it up like a little pool toy.
And it does float.
Absolutely, absolutely. It bring it on your boat just in case you're missing a life vest. I'm
Just in
just
case.
kidding, guys. Don't do that.
And since I love that I'm on Funcstrate, so I'm going to go ahead and create a coupon it says Funcstrate for 10% off my website. So if you go to my website, it'll be 10% off, and I'll get on computer and create that for you guys.
That's awesome. I really appreciate that. I'm sure that everybody else will also appreciate the little discount. Anything really helps in these times.
Right.
It's
We're all
yeah,
feeling it.
yeah, we're all feeling it, but we're all pushing forward, right? I think that's the most beautiful part.
Definitely.
Gosh, well,
This has been so much fun. I'm so glad that you invited me on here, and it's been much more relaxed than I thought. So I feel very calm.
I feel the same way. I think I was honestly a little nervous myself with the first episode, and it's good to have somebody that I already feel comfortable speaking to. It's just, it's
I
been really
agree.
nice talking to you, getting to know you a little bit better, and just getting to know what you're doing while you're doing it, and you know, how long. I guess one more question, right? Where do you see the future of mycology or your business? Like, what do you see 5, 10 years, or what's just your little idea?
I see some new renovate, like different kind of designs of them floatable, potentially adding a hard bottom, making them bigger, making them smaller, um, potentially, you know, having different bundles on my website. But at this point, like, I don't really know where I'm going to be in the next, just continuing on as I am, continuing to make time lapses, continuing to try to help people grow mushrooms and just sharing what I learn.
That's awesome. I guess that's all we can really do at the end of the day is just keep on moving forward. It's super hard to pinpoint the 5, 10 year plan sometimes. So
I feel like I should
um,
definitely have that solidly like put out now. Yeah, I
I
need
guess
to,
we all should, right? But
right? It's okay.
gosh, well, I'd say honestly, that was a pretty solid podcast. I wanted to, just thank you for joining in and being part of the first episode of Funcast. Um, I'm not, I feel like we've gone pretty much over everything at this point, and yeah, just thank you
Yeah,
so much, Ashley, for being part of this, and I'm super excited to post it on YouTube. I plan on posting it on YouTube, Spotify, and doing Instagram as well. So there's different avenues to watch or listen, however that may be. Um,
excellent. Well, thank you so much for having me. I can only say good things about Jason and Funkstraight and his business and our partnership together. And I can't thank you enough for, asking me to be here and continuing to support me through all these years. He's like been my number one supporter. And I just really appreciate it.
and I appreciate you as well. Much love, Ashley. Thanks for being on the episode, and we'll see you later.
Awesome. Thank you. Bye, guys. Have a good one.